how big of an escalation is assassinating a top general in comparison to, for example, the ATACMS missiles? Like, how big of a move was this? I mean, I imagine this
Yeah,
person probably knew Putin personally.
right.
So
Yeah, no, yeah, I think he was known by all the leaders, Putin himself. He was up at that level, so he was within that circle. So yeah, it's obviously they're going to be deeply angered. Um, but again, I think they're rational and they're not going to act out on their anger. They understand that there's a war and they have to look at the larger picture. I think we may see a retaliation, especially, excuse me, but again, it'll be carefully calibrated. Um, uh, well, we were talking. You just mentioned the attack and missiles attacks, and I actually saw a report just about an hour ago that there was another one on an airfield somewhere in Russia, and there were four attack and missiles fires. Three of them were knocked down. I think the fourth did some minor damage. He was probably knocked off course by EW. Um, so again, unsuccessful. These are not causing any serious harm, but they are attacks on Russian soil by NATO. So they are a very serious matter. Again, I think the reason why we didn't see a real response to the last one is for the reasons we gave, that Trump had finally come out and said, this is stupid. We shouldn't do this. Then later he made a statement that was much more wishy-washy. It's like, what did he say? That he said that he might reconsider, but Trump he's not very disciplined in the way he talks. And I think maybe what I'm hoping happened, I think there's a real good chance that it did happen, was that there was some sort of back channel communication. And they probably, to say, hey, we're going to end this, don't worry. And I think the Russians are going to respond accordingly. They're going to be very careful not to, keep on going up the escalation ladder if this is in fact what's happening. And again, I think we have some reasons to hope that it will.
isn't it crazy that basically the future of the world, survival, Armageddon, it's all weighing on the hands of Trump. We're on the brink of two major conflicts with Iran and with Russia. And we got somebody that you've described as sort of intellectually inconsistent and wishy-washy. And it's like, okay, this is where we're, if you like to gamble, this is your man. Let's see what happens, you know?
Putin, in fact, said that he would prefer, maybe he's changed his mind since then, but he would actually prefer Biden. And a lot of people said, that can't possibly be. But I think that the reason he gave and other Russian leaders gave was just that Biden was very predictable. And like, if you're dealing with, the possibility of nuclear war, actually having a predictable enemy is helpful. You just, you can, no surprises. We can plot a course that will keep us, out of nuclear war. Now, the thing about Trump is just that he is so unpredictable, and he's kind of I think Mark Sloboda describes him as a chaos bomb, and that, so there are chances that we may get off the escalation ladder entirely if he comes into office and he, in fact, makes good on his initial promise, and he stops the attacks on pre-2014 Russia. And that would be a great success, even though, I think there's no question that I'm absolutely certain that the ceasefire talks or whatever will fail. But if you can do that, that actually is something to celebrate. But then who knows? Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll be convinced by somebody else. It's just very hard to say with Trump. And maybe he'll even escalate even further. He's just like, he's thinking that he's being very clever as, to improve his negotiating position. So it's an open question. We'll see. He's the chaos bomb.
Yeah, I guess my just the reason I have a little bit of hope is that I know that Trump is willing to talk to people, and that's just a huge first step. And I think if he's able to really sit down and speak with the Russians, speak with the Iranians, speak with the Chinese, hopefully he'll start to see things a little bit from their point of view and not want to
Right.
escalate.
Yeah.
We did see him, like even talk to Kim Jong Un. I think he likes that idea of getting in the room with Putin and talking to him, getting in
Yeah.
the room with the Ayatollah or whatever. I think that would be, and it could
Yeah.
be a crowning achievement for him if he's able to
Yeah.
end things diplomatically. So
Right.
we'll
Well,
see.
last time, yeah.
Or he might just say, you know what, no deal, you're fired, and hit the big red button, and we're all
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, you
So.
never know. Yeah. No, I think that talks are good. I think they're doomed to failure, in the short run, in the medium term. I think there's no question about it. But talking is good because it actually makes you understand what the other side's positions are, and it'll be an educational experience if nothing else. The
Right.
way that Trump talks and a lot of his people, including Kellogg, who is his appointed envoy, right, to Russia, the way that they talk, they seem to think that, okay, yeah, Russia is really kind of on the ropes, and they're just going to be glad to get, away. If you give them an off ramp, they'll go for it because, their economy's about to collapse, and that's what's in the news all the time, and probably these sycophantic some intelligence uh, people under them are reinforcing that. Maybe hopefully they're occasionally hearing something else from the intelligence agencies, but they're probably ignoring it. They seem to believe, from the way they talk, that again, Russia is kind of desperate for an off ramp, and but I think when they start talking to the Russians, they'll find out that the Russians are absolutely firm, have absolutely no interest, in a ceasefire without a larger security agreement, and without Ukraine meeting the conditions that they previously stated. And that'll maybe end the talks, but at least they'll come back and say, huh. Okay, maybe we're wrong about that, and that somewhere down the road, that's a kind of a first step towards, eventual realistic negotiations.
Right. It needs to have education. People need
Yeah.
to be able to see the other side.
Right.
And we've done our media and our governments have done everything in its power to not show the other side.
Right. And
It's
we
all
just
about
ignore what they
demonization.
say. And I think that we've been taught to just assume, that there are these things called Russian talking points that have nothing to do with reality. You can't listen to them. They just lie, 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 lie. And so they're probably thinking that, they've got to know that the conditions that Putin has declared and that Lavrov and others have repeated. But they probably decide, well, that's just the Russians. They like, when we get in the room with them, we'll tell them how the way it is, and and we'll come to an understanding. I think they're going to find out that those public statements were where the Russians really stand, and they have no intention of backing away from them.
Okay, well, fingers crossed that talks happen and they go well. Otherwise, bunker building time, right? Okay, anyways, going back to the assassination, and you also mentioned that there were 4 attackers just fired just today, I guess.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any news about it. Has Russia responded saying that they will retaliate to either these, the attackers or the assassination?
I haven't heard that. Yeah, I think this most recent attack is, well, it's
Just happened.
just happened. It's so recent that the Ministry of Defense hasn't made any statement about it.
Well, do you think that we won't see it sounds like there has been some success, like what you said, that there has been some type of communication or signaling from the Trump administration coming in, and that is holding the Russians back from
that's
escalating.
Yeah, that's the way it appears to me. I think that's the only way to explain the non-response to the previous attack. And it makes sense. I'm just putting, I put myself in Putin's shoes. If Trump comes out and says this, it's like, what's the point of going up the escalation ladder if these are just going to stop in 30 days, right? We got to do what we can to avoid it. So let's just, let's cool things down. Now, if he's convinced that nothing's going to change and they're just going to keep on doing this, then he will have to respond in a very meaningful way, with Oreshniks and other, made really serious response, possible decapitation strikes.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
it's
He didn't use the word decapitation. We got to point that out. Attacks on decision-making centers. So they may even warn these people ahead of time. That's maybe how the Russians will do it, but maybe take out an administrative building or something. But I think for the moment, so long as he has reason to believe that these will end, these really meaningless strikes will, in military terms are meaningless, that they will end on January 20th or January 21st or something, then, why push it? There's just.
Yeah, let's hope so.